Welcome, Mandy Nellar of Flourish to the Heartfelt Business Path Chats. We're here on a Saturday afternoon in autumn, a beautiful day in Adelaide, and we are going to talk all things heartfelt business, which is, more and more the way the world needs to go, I think. So, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Jess.
So to get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit of your story to now? What's your professional background and like how did you come to be here?
So I guess here was something that I never thought I would be here because my professional background is mostly in corporate. So
Mhm.
I spent probably over nearly 25 years working in corporate roles, working my way from the bottom to the top, corporate administration, got into management, and it's something that I really thrived on. I really enjoyed doing, and it was something that my really organized brain really liked that side of work and got into. And so my professional background was in corporate. So to end up being here now with my own business as a kinesiologist is something never in the 5 year plan at all, or 10 year plan, or any vision of it. So to come from corporate to here is quite a big step for me. It was something unexpected, and I guess for me it showed that you can't just plan how life's going to be, because I got where I wanted to be and it was wonderful, but then things shifted and I had to change things fairly suddenly, and it would led me down a completely different path, but it was kind of cool too. Yeah. So and then I just let it go with it and just flowed with where my life was going to go. So yeah. So
I think,
professionally, yeah.
and I think at the moment it's such a common story. Like I was at an event on Thursday night and I met several women that they had exactly the same story. They had a corporate background and they were doing extremely intuitive energy work, leaning things now. So it's it feels like there's a bit of a groundswell of this happening. And that also means that there's all these incredibly wise and accomplished women
Yeah.
moving into this space, which is ultimately going to elevate it for everyone, really.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah.
So what happened with the corporate that made you make start to go down this path, basically?
Uh, so I guess a few things. I now it was a challenging time, but on reflection, I call it a giant shove from the universe, because I actually think I was always meant to do this work, and
Mhm.
it just pushed me out of something that I wasn't really aligned with. I look back and I wasn't aligned with my values or beliefs, and created a lot of stress for me. So yeah, so for me, it was about then being prepared to take a risk and leave the corporate, because corporate I was paid pretty well and it was really secure, and I had all my paid leave and everything, and so to leave, it was a big risk, but it was one that I just knew what I had to leave. And so I always say I always knew the from, but I hadn't quite worked out the to yet. So I left without a job to go to, and that's when this path with Soul Flourish started, because it was something that was pulling me in that direction. I knew I was a square peg in a round hole, and I knew it was time for me to go, but I didn't know who, why, where, how, or what that was going to do. But yeah, it was definitely something that I needed to do for me and for my family and friends, and even the people I was working with. That was just wasn't right for me anymore.
Mm. Can you share a bit of the health battle you had that kind of
Yeah,
led you here?
yeah. So in the middle of all of that, I had a health condition, chronic fatigue, and whilst not life threatening, it was life changing. That was back in 2008 when I sort of woke up with chronic fatigue. At the time, I was super sporty, so I was playing squash 3 or 4 times a week. I used to play softball, super social, and then woke up one morning not able to get out of bed. And so to go from being extremely active to that was pretty confronting. And I also thought I was pretty healthy at the time. So it was really confronting. I'm like, what do you mean I can't do everything anymore? But that for me completely changed everything. It was a line in the sand moment. took me 8 years to recover, and going against the odds of recovery, because everyone tells you you can't recover from chronic fatigue, and I always believed I could. So that chronic fatigue for me was why I think I kept being pulled towards, pulled away from corporate and into this other type of work, because I had lessons to share with people, and stories to tell, and people to understand, to help with that have been through similar things to me, because it was life changing. I changed every aspect of my life over that period of time. So yeah.
What sort of aspects can you share some of those that
Yeah,
people might relate to?
yeah, so social overhaul. So I went from being the binge drinker, party girl, to the occasional glass of wine or beer. Like, so I can't drink as much anymore, but that my liver is thankful for that. And into, like, I guess, changed nutritionally, the way I fuel my body. That was a massive lesson. I learnt from a wonderful man called Chris Massey, who runs Chi Train. I exercise with him, and he's been my mentor through it. But the importance of organic foods and fueling your body well, and looking after yourself from a nutrition perspective. Because, yeah, I was socializing and exercising, but my body didn't have the fuel that it needed. So refueling for me is really important. And the other biggest part, which is the hardest part, is the importance of rest and recovery. And so as a doer, I am a doer, I'm type A, I'm always going, and whether that was through sport or socializing, it was being able to find rest and set healthy boundaries and look after myself in all aspects. So I got into organic foods and natural remedies, natural therapies. As you know, Jess, we share a wonderful naturopath together, and I just changed like every aspect, but I needed every aspect. I couldn't just have one aspect. I needed every aspect and be willing to be wholeheartedly with it. And now it's just my lifestyle. It's just my normal. Yeah. So,
I think that rest thing is such a big thing for so many, type A or women in business types that are driven. Um, Learning that rest is not a reward is such a big part of your life lesson that, you actually need to refuel, and it's part of the strategy, not
yeah.
not a nice to have once the strategy's delivered. Like, it has to be part of the strategy, and I've had a big, path of learning how to do that too. So I hear that it's such a big part of being a well human, is being able
Yeah.
to rest and knowing you are allowed to rest and you must rest.
Yeah. So the rest without guilt is
Mm,
that's the key, being able to wholeheartedly rest, like rest completely,
mm.
and be okay with it, not going, okay, I should be. Oh my God, what am I doing? I've got things to do. It's the rest. And yes, I didn't rest, and I didn't look after myself, and my body was probably sending me lots of little signals, and eventually went, nah, nothing. Let's pop her on her butt and let her learn the hard way. So
Deepest rest she can possibly have, yes.
go anywhere for 8 years.
And so why kinesiology then, in particular?
Kinesiology, it's funny. Through the chronic fatigue and through some of the workplace stuff, I was experiencing a lot of stress, and I went to see a kinesiologist. And my mum was right into this. She's sort of a champion of all the spiritual world, she was recommending someone for me to see. And I remember at the time I didn't want to do it. I was really resistant towards it. It was just another thing on my list to do. But I went to see her, and it was quite compelling. Not only the results I got from it, but from what I learned about what was driving my behaviors and what kept coming up, and that I was probably the author of my own demise in a way. And so I had a few sessions with her, and that was really amazed me. But I still hadn't thought I'd be a kinesiologist. And I'd already, then, even after leaving government and starting Flourish, I still didn't think that I'd be a kinesiologist. But my dog, I've got a crazy Labrador, and so I ended up sending her to, or going to a kinesiologist in Perth who does distance, and she specialises in animals. And she kept on saying, Lola wants you to go towards your life purpose. Lola wants you to go towards your life. That's what she's here for. And then eventually I'm like, oh, it's kinesiology. Yeah. And it was. And from the moment it came to me, a bit of that intuition, and it just came to me one day. I was like, I'm going to be a kinesiologist. And I signed up to a course the next day. And much to everyone's surprise, including myself probably. But I think my dog, my beautiful Labrador Lola might have led me here.
The messages come in all forms and all
Yeah,
shapes and all sizes, and they nudge and nudge until you hear them.
yeah, yeah. I tend to usually have to hear
Um, and so, what's the real why in what you do now
them.
in business?
Yeah. So my why for now is really, I guess, being able to help people. And I sound that very cliche, but I think it's a path that I was always meant to follow. And I find that so rewarding, and to be able to just not help people, but help people be the best they can be. So, that's such a big why for me. And I love being able to see clients shift and change and evolve, whether it's over time or sometimes it's just in a session. And that continues to be my why. And when there's certainly times, particularly when running your own business, it's easier for me to have just gone back to my corporate world because it's so easy, it's structured, they pay the same amount whether you're good or bad or there or not. But I keep being drawn back to this kinesiology and working one-on-one with clients. One-on-one for me is where I get the most reward. I really like to be able to connect. I like to be in person in people's energy space so I can sort of feel how they are. And that continues to be my why. And I know I'm so driven with that. I should have taken the driven out. But I just kind of like, if someone comes in and there's something that we can't quite work out, I'm just passionate about going away and learning more. How can I help them? How can I be better? How can I do the best for them? And that fulfills me. I find that a really fulfilling thing. And it's just such a rewarding career to be in, to be able to be in a position where you have these tools, whether, just the tools are able to have some knowledge and experience, my own experience, to be able to help people find themselves and be the best they can be. I've got a big why. I can probably why about my why for a while.
Look, tell me, who do you support, and how does it look to work with you?
So I guess my standard, I always thought that I would work with people with chronic fatigue. And I do have a couple of clients with chronic fatigue, but it was always my original why and what I wanted to do. And then it's evolved, and then the corporate stress, I got, quite excellent experience in that. So I do have some clients with that, but I've actually evolved with that with my clients and with my own experiences. And I'm now morphed into quite a bit of a women's health aspect, because what I'm finding, and I've been a kinesiologist for 4 years now, is that most of my clients are women, and most of my clients have women's health issues in some level. So whether it's as a teenager or as a post-menopausal, but I guess the thing that scares me most is most women think it's normal, and it's not. So then that has sparked some more learning for me, and I'm now specialising a bit more in that. But through that, stress and fatigue play key roles in the women's health space. And so whilst I do have male clients, and I love having male clients and I work with them and I still, enjoy that part, is the women's health which I never saw coming at all, has actually really intrigued me, because it's so common and so expected, and people like, women, no, you don't have to put up with that. So yeah, so that's where I'm probably working more in that, but it's still sitting with the stress and fatigue space, because I think they're kind of all joined together. Yeah.
I agree. I think, in fact, I just read something today, but I think, why, look, we're a generation who are talking about perimenopause and menopause, more Gen X women, in particular, which is, I think, a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, oh my God, the suffering of women, the suffering of women. Sometimes that hits me, that we just have suffered in silence for so long, and exactly that, normalized how we've felt. Like it's, oh, we've just got to cope. This is obviously normal, when quite
Mm,
often it's quite debilitating and not normal. Uh,
yeah,
but it is also, I think, exactly that. It is the stress. It is the high cortisol levels that, as a generation of women, Gen X and older millennials who are raising families or have big jobs, or, our level, and just the sheer volume of what's going on in the world, the level of stress is just too high. And so I feel that's making it worse
yeah,
ultimately than perhaps it's ever been in history.
yeah,
So I'm not surprised that's kind of your core thing that seems to be coming
yeah.
through.
Yeah, and it's good that like our generation, just that we are actually speaking about it now because it didn't. And so, I've got friends who are, around 10 years younger than me and they're speaking openly about it. And I'm like, cool, that's great. And hearing people's stories about endometriosis, which I thankfully haven't experienced, but there's so many women I know of similar age to me that went through all that and had the shame that they and experience. But now people are talking about it, and it's like so cool. And for me to be able to talk about it where we just never did. Yeah, I think that's what's inspired me a bit to go on with this. It's like I'm learning along with everybody to like go, hang on, no, we don't have to put up with all of this stuff. We can be better as not have to suffer through things as women and just deal with this and having the stress impact our hormones in the ways that it does. So yeah,
Mm. And that there is support out
yeah,
there. There's
exactly.
amazing supports and amazing nurturing, which I feel is like kind of almost the number one thing that women need to learn to do in this time, is learn to nurture themselves. There's
Yeah.
amazing nurturing services like yours. So how does it work? What does a session with you look like?
So a session with me always starts with a bit of a chat to see where you're at. So new clients, I do a full client intake. So I'm qualified with mind body medicine. So I like to do a full client intake. So I'll look in every aspect and I look to see whether any physical symptoms are sort of can be linked and then look at the psychological reason behind those. So first session for a new client is we go in a bit more detail there, but regardless of the session, we always start with a chat to see what's going on, what you'd like to work on, what's been happening. And then the session itself is a case of lying down onto my massage bed and fully dressed. And then I use muscle testing to see where any stresses or imbalances are lying in the body. Or sometimes we set a goal specifically around, something we'd like to focus on, or something might be physical, something emotional, a goal of where we'd like to be around our relationship with ourselves, and then work towards that. And we look to see, any stresses or imbalances, and then we discuss them as they come up. So I might talk about, okay, liver meridians showing up as out of balance. We'll talk about the psychological side of that and what that means to you, and we then can sort of understand a little bit more what's going on. I use a bit of chakras and crystals and bushflower essences. But then I can also be quite clinical in, I've got little hormone or nutrient testing kits to look to see if there's any stresses or imbalances from a biochemical level as well, or any structural issues as well. So there's just, I think with kinesiology, it's all encompassing and we look at it all together. Um, um, so that's probably the beauty, but different ways to bring things up. So people see this as a different aspect of talk therapy because we're having discussions about things, but not in a real formalized way. But
More embodied way.
yeah, more working into your body. We want to get you back into be able to sort of connect back to the body and understand the body is because it's the body that's going to be giving answers. So usually when you are experiencing pain or any physical symptoms, they're usually the last thing that's happened is some emotional situation that has been suppressed or hasn't been released. And so we're sort of trying to look at it that way to help physical stuff. We look to see what's going on energetically and emotionally and psychologically and biochemically as well. So so we just use different ways of doing that. And then always at the end of my sessions, I like to hold acupressure points and I put on some nice music and you get to chill, close your eyes, sometimes fall asleep. And it's a chance to hit that deep relaxation. And the acupressure points I hold will always be relative to what we've been working on, whether that's physical or emotional. And Yeah, and sometimes I use some visualizations in felt sense work as well. Anything to get you back into the body, and sometimes, particularly with stress and anxiety, people are up in their heads. We need to get you back into the body, feeling what the body feels like, and reconnecting to that and getting, yeah. So every session is different. So, and it is because it's always because it's muscle testing, which is tapping into your subconscious. It's whatever your body wants at that time. So we could do a session a day later and would have different things come up because it's whatever your body is ready to release at that particular time. That session, so it'll be different with each person. It'll be each your own sessions are different each time for that reason, because one of the things we do is age a session. We look to see if there's an age when something you're at when something may have started to occur, and sometimes the body may not be ready for that. So if you come in and you're all flustered, it may not come up. Age session won't come up, but the next session it will. Okay, we're ready to go back to that age and sort of talk about what was going on for you and how it's ready. But because we're using the muscle testing, it's always what your body. It's not what I think it's going to be. It's what your body is ready to be dealing with, your subconscious nervous system. So.
Mm. Full disclosure, I am a client of Mandy's. And I have been seeing you for 3 years now, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I think in the first sessions, it was always that my head was so, so busy, and I would come out of it, and it was like you'd pulled strings of cotton wool out of my head, and it was just so much lighter and clearer. Uh,
Yeah.
but in probably the more recent year or so, I go into deep meditative very deep, very quickly with you, don't I? And I just,
Yeah. Yeah, but you get your best downloads. You sort of come up and like, right, we're doing this.
it's incredible. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think kinesiology is wonderful because it does always speak so true to what's going on. Like as soon as you'll say an organ or a feeling or something like that, it's always pretty much bang on for what's going on at that time, that day, that week, or in your life generally. And it does allow you to process. It feels acknowledging to have it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just in your head, and it feels like a bit of a release, like that you can let it go, or at least, yeah, sit with it and understand it a bit more. But
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. Yes, thank you for that. So now we're gonna turn a little bit towards, how it feels to have to be a storyteller in your business when it's not your trade. Um, because this is a question I find really interesting talking to business owners about, because it's the challenge that so many people I work with have.
Mm.
Is, what are the biggest challenges you have in telling the story of your business, and kind of how did you go about coming to this storytelling?
So I think the storytelling part, the hardest part was because my business, because of the way that I have built it and nurtured it and loved it, it's me. And so when I'm talking about my business and the storytelling of my business, I'm talking about me. And here I've come from a corporate background and we don't talk about ourselves at all. And so for me, the hardest part, and I'm a lot better now, but I needed to be vulnerable and I needed to be honest and I needed people to see the real me because that's who they're coming to see because that's my business. And so to do that was a huge, huge shift. I eventually got a bit better with it in writing because, again, corporate background, I was always good at writing. So every now and I sort of sneak in a little bit, okay, I can be a little bit more vulnerable in the written word and hopefully no one will actually see the post that I've just done. It's only probably in the last year or so that I've really been able to open up and verbally speak about things, even about something simple like my chronic fatigue story. And I know Jess is going to laugh because I remember the first time you interviewed me, and you're like, and I couldn't actually remember anything. I'm like, I don't know, I don't know who I am, and what. And so I think being able to verbally talk about it is the evolution, but I'm talking about myself, which is hard, and that's the that's the biggest step. That's the biggest shift. I've got to share my stories to connect, and talking about me.
And it is. I say it's like it reflects you to you in emphatic ways, this task. And so people come to it thinking it's kind of this light, just get it done, become popular and viral, and yeah, done, I'm done. But actually, it's so much more nuanced, and popularity and virality are just
Mm,
such a small, if even relevant part of it. But
mm,
it's more about, you're right, it's people buy from people. And so they need to see and hear you a bit. They don't have to
mm,
see and hear all of you, but they have to see and hear a bit of you in order to know, am I going to really trade with this person? Because
mm,
that's how they make their decision, not entirely on what you do. They make the decision on, your unique energy and why you do it, really. And I'm not, I resonate because so many people I support, that's the challenge they have, is that their stories are suddenly part of their business narrative, and that's not kind of what they expected to have to do.
yeah,
And that corporate thing of we is very, very comforting to sit behind.
yeah,
It's like a security gate, that you can sit behind the corporate we, and it's not really, nothing's really real in it. So
mm,
it's just it's a facade that's lovely and comfortable, but when it's your business, you just can't do that anymore. Yeah,
yeah,
yes, I
yeah,
think people will
yeah. No,
resonate
no,
with
nowhere to hide.
that. No.
Yeah,
And your stories ultimately endorse your offer, so
mm,
your lived experience is what is going to speak to people. So, and how you came to be here is ultimately,
yeah,
and that is what people will resonate with. Yeah, I know, I think that's a really good point to share, because
mm,
it's such a common thread.
yeah, yeah,
So what about your intuition? You're obviously in a very intuitive practice now, which you
yeah.
weren't
No.
before. And we talked a little bit about the Lola story, but have you found your intuition nudges you in other ways in your business now? And do you listen to them?
Yes, I'm getting there with it. I have really good intuition. I just also have a really busy mind, and I'm a very big overthinker. So something could come in, and I'll go, and I'll overthink it, and no, and out it'll go. But now I feel like my intuition is quite strong. And as far as my business goes, I now look back, and setting up Soul Flourish alone was my intuition. I didn't realize it was my intuition at the time, but it was. And every aspect that I've done, whether going to kinesiology, that was this sudden yes, I'm doing it. So have used it a lot, but have obviously at times overthought the life out of it. But when it comes to working with clients, I can really drop and just like can quiet my mind. I can really tap in and be intuitive around that. And I'm saying that in I'm not psychic, I'm not in any of those things. But I can be intuitive and I can feel people's energy, and so I can work with that, and so I can adapt the sessions, whether it's per client or in your own sessions of what's needed, because my intuition will tell me where we're going to be going and what we might be doing or what I think is needed in it. So I can use it in the sessions, but then I also use it around how I want the sessions to be, and again what I need in my life, in my own life, is but yeah, it's when I allow it to happen and quiet in my mind, I actually can be intuitive. And looking back, I probably was my whole life, but I was in denial for about nearly 50 years.
I resonate with that too. It's a little bit my story. It's funny because I think that's the thing with intuition. It's put up as like it's an elevated state, or
Mm,
it's something that only really evolved people have. But actually every human being on the planet has intuition. We all
yeah.
have it. We just have
Mm,
learned it somewhere in the last 500 years or so. We've kind of learned our way out of it, and to stop trusting it. But when you do start listening to it again, it's pretty emphatic. And you do realize, because I'm the same, I realize how often I did actually hear it
mm,
those years that I probably was ignoring it. And weirdly did micro things that would have been as a result of it. But now I'm openly listening, it changes things. And I think what I'm interested in is that question of, because this is really the way felt is evolving, is that question of strategy cross intuition. So obviously
mm,
Soul Flourish started. as a
Mm.
result of that. Is there been any other strategic step you've taken in the business that has been like kind of an intuitive nudge?
Probably where I work now. I when I first started kinesiology, I was sharing a room with my mum, and the space that I'm now working from, Soul and Grace. I knew it was funny. The ad came up, and I looked at it, and I knew straight away, like that was that I didn't have to go and look at the space. That was where I'm going to be working. And I also knew that Megan, who owns Soul and Grace, that I'll be working with her. So as soon as we met, as soon as I walked in, it was like a wholehearted 100%. So that was for me one thing that was really, and it was been the best thing that I've ever done is just to work from there. Um, Megan's amazing, Soul and Grace is amazing, but that was a real intuitive. But it was an 100% knowing without even. Normally, I'm a researcher, planner, pros, cons. I was like, yes, 100%. So that probably is a big shift. And then also the way I structure my days now. So I'm mainly work do kinesiology a couple of days a week, and that was like allowing myself to just listen to what I need to be able to best help my clients and work from, understand, that to be able to be the best I can be, I need to work. I'm an introvert, so I need to, who's had a history of chronic fatigue and all those and stress. So I needed to work out how to best set up my business. And I guess now listening to that rather than fighting it and pushing myself to do more and trying to do a million things. So yeah, I think they're the key things from an intuitive. And going into Reiki was intuitive too. So I think it's a bit. Do you know what? I actually think this whole thing, but Reiki, I was completely
100%,
yeah,
100% of Soul and Flourish.
the whole thing. I just was completely opposite to what I used to do. But Reiki, I was definitely drawn to that, and I was, my mum, again, very spiritual, was into Reiki. Went so as a 20 something, I think I was only like 21, do Reiki. I'm like, no. And then, then a couple of years ago, I'm going to do Reiki. They're like, what? I don't know. I need to do it now. Now.
Um, that when you talk about your structuring your day, I'm just can we unravel that a bit more because that's really interesting. I think that concept of honoring our own rhythm,
Yeah.
and that's for anything too, right? I talk about that in marketing your business. You've got to honor your rhythm with that too. That's how it works for you.
Yeah.
So what does it look like as as
Yeah.
an introvert person that needs to rest a
Well,
lot?
I need to have space between clients. That was a need, and that's a time for me to clear my brain from the one client, set up for the next. And sometimes that can be just 15 minutes, but I realized I need more of the half-hour breaks. I needed a longer lunch break. And I also realized I can't do more than 5 clients in a day. I know financially, yeah, great. Let's squash them all in, work a really long day. And I know kinesiologists that sometimes do 7, 8 in a day. Not It was never going to be for me. And the more I tried to do that, I wasn't there for my clients. By the last clients, I'm like, I'm done. And so I needed to be able to manage my energy, manage my time. And so now with no more than 5 clients in a day and having them spaced, and on Thursdays I work a bit later, so I start a bit later rather to offset that. So and that allows me to go and do exercise, which I do on a Thursday morning with Team Train that I was mentioning earlier, and that is a really good outlet for me. So to be able to get the exercise that I want, to be able to not push myself and try to get early or try to get too much done in a day, that's been probably a big step. But that took a few years to work out. Like it's a trial and error, and but I think allowing myself that it was okay. I think that's the old me, the corporate me would have gone, nah, come on. You've
Yeah,
smashed
push
it before.
harder, push
Push it.
harder.
You would have got this in there, but no, it's like, no, what I can manage, and this is what I think for me, if my energy's down, then I'm not there for my clients. So I'm not serving anyone by doing it. So yeah, that was part of that, just allowing space between clients and not pushing myself to do too many.
Yeah, I love that because I think that is also such a big conversation that people don't have enough that, like finding the rhythm of your workday that works for you. I remember for me, it was, um, I was seeing an acupuncturist who said I needed to go slow on a Monday. I'm like, what? I can't go. You've got to be kidding. And then I just went, no, I am. I'm just going to slow down for a bit. And then it became that I took Friday mornings because I
Mm.
realized I worked full time to a Thursday night. And I'm like, why am I so tired on a Friday? So it's actually going to be Fridays because Mondays made me a bit stressed out because I needed to get started, but Fridays allowed me to recoup.
Mm.
Yeah, but it took me a while, like you, to go,
Yeah,
that's okay. This is my
yeah,
business. I'm allowed to make it my way and
yeah,
it's allowed to serve me because I'm
yeah,
serving it. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think that's such an important thing for people to hear too,
Mm.
that you got to work with your own rhythm.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely. And I think it is part of, you know, that lesson for it's A for women and B for women in their own business that feel that need to be drive and to be the best and to do more. That sometimes it's not to be better, it's doing less, and that is a really tough lesson for particularly busy mums and all of that. So, but as women, it's that's like you don't have to push so hard. You can actually still get the right rewards, the right outcomes without that constant push and strive. And yeah.
Sometimes better even.
Mm. Yeah.
Like it sort of can be counterintuitive, but you're like, oh, the business was more productive this
Yeah.
month when I rested more.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. How did that
Oh, cool.
work?
Um, tell us how people can work with you.
So I have got a online booking system. So you can book online. I've got a link in either my Instagram, which is at soul_flourish, I think it is. And then I've got a website as well. The links are on there. And I've also got Facebook. So, but I've got that booking system, or you can contact me by phone and I can book you in as well. So it's easy. I offer free clarity calls too because some people don't know kinesiology. It's different. It's weird. I know that. And so sometimes talking through with me and understanding how it can help you is really good. So I offer a free clarity call as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, so main social media is pretty much Instagram, isn't it, with you at soul_flourish.
Yeah, I'm across both so, Instagram and Facebook, but I tend to live more on Instagram, I think. But yeah, they're both there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
Beautiful. I'll link the website in the show notes too, in the notes on this video as well, of course. Thank you, Mandy, for
Oh,
chatting and
yeah.
for telling us, sharing your heartfelt, heart-led business story with us. You're based in Adelaide too. That's important for probably people to know,
Yes,
if
yes, and I only do in person. I don't do online. Some kinesiology because kinesiology does work online. Don't get me wrong, it absolutely does. But I like the in person best.
yeah, cool. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you.